Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This message is for brother Daniel, Ali Dawah, Muhammad Hegab, and Sajid Lipham. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. So I've just watched a video, I've got it on the other screen, by Ali Dawah regarding Daniel Annihilates Sajid Lipham. To be honest with you, I feel completely upset when I see such videos or brothers attacking brothers. I'm a big fan of all your videos. I follow your channels and I watch all your videos, and I personally do not see any sort of disagreement from what you're saying. Everyone's looking at the same issue from a different perspective, and everyone has a good intention, so we shouldn't judge each other and pass these judgments. Oh, this brother's a bootlicker, or this brother is a makhlaji or khawarij or whatever. This is one of the biggest mistakes that's happened in the ummah in the past, and this is one of the contributing factors why Islam was abandoned as a complete way of life. Yes, we are Muslims, alhamdulillah. Allah has blessed us with this pure way of life and a complete way of life, and we should hold firm to it. We should be trying to support each other to righteousness, not trying to point fingers at each other's faults. We all here for a purpose. Allah created all of us for a purpose, and we all have a different role, and we all should be completing each other rather than trying to point fingers or point weaknesses in each other. I am not, on the outset, I am not an Islamic scholar. I haven't gone to Medina or any university to study Islam in sort of an academic way. So and I completely appreciate anyone that's actually spent the time and taken the time, and I wish I did in my early years have sort of dedicated a portion of my life to really study Islam properly and learn the Arabic language fluently, and really understand this. But I have self-studied Islam and from a particular perspective of economics, which is my background, economics and technology, computer science, alhamdulillah. So I have kind of looked into the Sharia from that aspect, and I've also looked at a hadith and the Quran from other aspects as well, because I need to obviously get a broader picture of all the understanding. Now, regarding criticizing leaders and so on, or creating this uprising, for example, like what happened in the Arab Spring in Egypt and so on, Tunis and so on, that's actually, from my understanding and from what I've researched, it's not actually allowed to do such activity unless the leader is basically preventing Muslims from following their religious duties, such as praying, fasting and so on. If the leader prevents Muslims from practicing their religious aspects of Islam, I'm not talking about the economics or political system or the legal system, so just the spiritual aspect, just our relationship between Allah, our creator. So if he prevents us from that, yes, you are allowed to stand up and create this uprising. However, if he does not, he might be a corrupt leader, he might be very strict and harsh. We should try to stay within the rules of that, and we pray to Allah that He would send us someone that would become more righteous and more guided to Islam, and someone that is sincere in his heart. But as long as he doesn't go against the prayer and doesn't go against fasting or anything like, just prevents people from fasting and that kind of stuff, then you just have to obey him. We just have to obey him. We can criticize, obviously you can advise publicly or privately if you have access to certain individuals. I've had some privilege to some people that I knew that were in certain positions, especially in the financial markets or in positions in governments, and I've had private words with them regarding certain things that they should be doing, but I don't, if they accept, fine, it's good, because Allah gave them that opportunity to be in a position of certain authority, and they can use that position to gain a great reward from Allah by following and applying the Sharia in their particular aspect of their field. But I don't sort of attack them. I don't try to criticize them in a harsh way. I give them respect. Allah's given you this opportunity, brother, I advise you to do this, or look at this particular aspect, and the implementation. So before I get carried away and start talking about other things, my personal advice is that we should be trying to supplement each other, we should be trying to support each other, and not to pick fights, not to get into that, because you're only turning into a laughing stock in front of the enemies of Allah. They are just looking at this and just falling down laughing at us. How pathetic we've become, that we are wasting our time attacking each other and picking faults. And I've just got on the other screen where you've got so one of the points that was in the video, it says criticizing ruler forcefully turning Muslims into atheists. Yes, if that's the case, if a leader imposes, I'm not saying like a secular legal system or secular economics or the systems that we have right now, because the fact that remains is that there is no Islamic country, there is no country in the world today that is following or implementing Sharia. The last time this happened is by the Khulafa ar-Rashidin, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously the prophet of our prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn Khattab, Osman bin Affan, and Ali ibn Abi Talib. And of course we went a little bit misguided things. We had several leaders in between that were more going into their self-gain, and were becoming more worldly, and were completely strict and harsh. And I don't need to go into Hajjaj ibn Sufyan and so on. You can look into this history, I'm sure you're all aware of it. But then we had another great leader, a reviver, which is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who is the fifth rightly guided Khalifa, and he created wonders in the 2 years that he reigned, or was the Khalifa of the Ummah. And unfortunately he got poisoned, because there's always evil people in the community, irrespective whether they are Muslims and so on. Some people do not understand. Until today, we have Muslims that don't understand that Islam is not just a religion, it's a complete way of life which encompasses all aspects of life, which is economic, the social, political, legal, even how you live your life, even amongst other creations, like creatures and so on, animals, and the environment and so on, how you deal with all these things. It gives you solutions to all problems. I'm nothing special again, but what I personally do in my life before I go into any field, be it in technology or in economics or whatever, first thing I do is I actually look into the Quran. And people might say, what does the Quran have to do anything to software development, and what does the Quran have to say about economics? It has a lot. There is a lot of inspiration you can get. There's a lot of guidance. So what I do is I always try to go through the Quran to see a particular field that I'm going into, and then if there's something that's mentioned there, I try to adopt it or take that recommendation from the Quran, because Allah is our creator. He knows what's best for us. He knows what's better than us, so we cannot come up with a better solution or a better way than what Allah has given us. And the second thing I do is I look at what the Prophet have said or done, so the way he's implemented it, or the way his understanding of implementation. And I also look at his companions, how they've implemented it, the people that the Sahaba that the Prophet Muhammad has already approved of them. For example, Omar, Abu Bakr Siddiq, Osman bin Affan, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and of course I also look at Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was a righteous leader as well. So I look at their lives, if there's any aspects in their life, whether one of them was a trader, for example, how did he conduct business? Because obviously the way he conducted business, after of course being a Muslim, then he would have been guided by the Prophet Muhammad. If he's done anything wrong, then the Prophet Muhammad would have corrected him at the time, would have told him not to do business a certain way. And obviously Bilal as well, regarding exchanging dates, good quality dates for poor dates and so on, and he corrected him on that point. And this is the beginning of riba. So these are just simple examples. So what we should be doing is really trying to unite than to try to divide, not to attack each other publicly or even privately. We should be trying to, I appreciate what Daniel said, is obviously if you want to have a dialogue, Sajid, he invited Sajid and said, look, if you want to have a dialogue about this and let's discuss this and so on, that's okay, fine, but we should never go down this route of calling each other bootlickers and Makhlijis and Khawarij and all that stuff. Khawarij do exist, unfortunately, and they are extreme fringe that existed from way back, the time of even the companions. So yeah, they do exist. Unfortunately, there's people that just take things to the extreme, and they just call for raising up against your leader and so on. And this is the agenda, by the way. This whole thing, the Arab Spring thing, is all orchestrated by the enemies of Allah. It's not something that was inspired by Muslims, or it's made out to be like that. Yes, there's some sort of a revival of Islam, whatever. But unfortunately, it's not true, because I have actually spoken to those people that claim to be representing Islam on a private level, again, and their agenda was completely just to take power and control, and the people. In my personal opinion, obviously, I'm not a scholar in Islam, but from my understanding, anyone that desires power or position, they should not be given any power or position. So anyone that's actually pursuing something because they want power in this world, they should not be given that. You should give it to the best people. The people of knowledge should all come together, and all of us should come together, and we know who's good. So if we have a company, we're an accountant, we don't just get our best friend or our family member. If there's someone that there's a good mechanic, you don't make him your accountant. This is a completely different field. If you've got a problem with your car, you may go to a car mechanic. You don't go to a doctor. So it's common sense. So if anyone just wants something because of worldly gains, they should be shunned away. They shouldn't go into any sort of power. And anyone that unites with the enemies of Allah, without me going into any names, but any group that calls for divisions, or they regard themselves as they are the true representation of Islam, or the true group that represents the people, or anyone that calls themselves, or they try to create sects in the community or divisions of any sort, they should also be avoided completely. We should not be trying to just follow them blindly. Allah gave us a brain, and He gave us the knowledge. He gave us the Quran. He gave us Prophet Muhammad as our prophet, our guide, and He gave us the companions of the Prophet Muhammad as examples, and we should be learning from them. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with constructive criticism. If I've said anything wrong, I welcome constructive criticism. But do not just criticize me. Do not just say, okay, this is all nonsense, or you're working for the government, or you're doing this, or don't make assumptions, because you don't know what's in people's hearts. That's completely wrong to make these assumptions that this person's not, he's working with this or he's doing that. You should not make judgments. You can make judgments on groups. I don't want to mention their names, but I've looked into those groups that claim to be representing Islam, or claim to be calling back for the revival of the Khilafah. I've looked into those groups, I've met up with leaders in these groups, and I can tell you firsthand, they are not represented. They have been infiltrated. Unfortunately, they have been infiltrated. They are controlled as well by the same people that are against Muslims, and we're all being played. So the way to do this is that we have to unite together, not pick fights, petty fights between us and faults. We should be uniting under the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, his example, the Sunnah. We do that and we unite, we try to complete each other in one way or another, and we all show the world that we are united. So if one brother getting attacked, we should all be uniting to support each other, not picking fights or going into divisions and groups and start saying, okay, this brother's this and this brother's that. It's absolutely wrong. I love brother Sajid, I love what he's doing. He's, mashallah, he's educated. He went to Medina University. I've never met him, never spoke to him before, but I love his work, and barakallah fi. And also I love the work of Daniel. I watch a lot of his videos, mashallah, fantastic brother. Also what Ali Dawah is doing and Muhammad Hegab are doing, Speaker's Corner is up. Mashallah, this is fantastic. May Allah use these actions as a means for you to raise up in ranks in Jannah, inshallah, and guide people. So don't lose those good deeds over something that's just so, honestly, I can't really say. I mean, it's just, you got all these massive deeds, and mashallah, it's fantastic, but you could be throwing it all away. You could end up, and I'm not in any position to say this, but you could end up being bankrupt in the Day of Judgment because of what you say about others. So let's be careful, and I'm advising this to myself as well. So we have to be careful of our tongue. When we say something, this is what Shaitan wants. He wants us to make these mistakes, especially if you're doing something fi sabilillah. If you're working for Allah, Iblis wants you to trip up somewhere else. He wants you to go to the extremes. He wants you to attack another brother or speak ill of another Muslim, and that way you would lose all your good deeds. So you don't want to end up in that. You don't want to end up in that situation, and no one knows where they're going to end up. I don't know what's going to become of me. I'm not perfect. There's a lot of things that I can improve in my life, and likewise, it doesn't matter what position you are or how much worship you've done in your life or anything like that. It's only up to Allah's mercy. It's Allah who decides who's going to go to Jannah and who's not, who's going to get the reward and who's not. So someone could be praying 24/7 and Allah does not accept anything. You have to understand this. Someone might have sinned all his life, and he might do something very simple, and Allah can forgive that person because he's sincere in his heart. So no one knows what anyone else has got in their heart, or how sincere someone is when they're doing their ibadah. And I'm not just saying ibadah as in just praying and fasting and so on. I'm saying even in their work life. I see many Muslims, I know Muslims personally, friends that are doing sunnah and nafl and so on, and then when they go into the world, they completely operate as non-Muslims. They go out and they borrow money from the bank, they try to take out a mortgage, and they say, oh, this is the only way, or they get into a business that we know 100% is haram, for example, like selling alcohol, or they have a corner shop and so on, restaurant, and they're selling alcohol, and when you speak to them, they tell you, brother, you don't understand, it's the only way we can get our risk, and this is completely a misunderstanding. How could you be doing, alhamdulillah, you're doing the salah and doing the zakat, and you're fasting Ramadan, all that stuff, but at the same time your risk is all haram, and risk is fixed. So why not, if you understand, if the risk is fixed from Allah, and if it's written for you, you're going to get £1 million, you're going to get £1 million. You get it from haram, you get it from halal. You're not going to increase your risk by doing more haram or trying to break the rules. So you just have to be a little bit patient, and you'll get the same amount of risk that's already written for you. But with that as well, you'll get the barakah. Yeah, and I know you brothers understand, but I'm just saying the state of the ummah today is really bad. There's a lot of brothers out there that are completely lost, even if they've memorized more of the Quran. I know people that they send their children to Quranic schools. They do a lot of stuff. They're reading Quran regularly. They're doing that, but their risk is all haram, and people still do not understand. Until today, there are Muslims that are very, they say they're Salafis, they say all these things, but they are not implementing Islam as a complete way of life in their life. Yeah, we all make mistakes, but we have to admit, we have to know when someone does something haram, and you ask them, is this halal or haram? They should know this is haram. They shouldn't be trying to defend it or saying, this is the only way I can make money, or this is the only way I can buy a house. It's not the only way. Allah's the one that creates opening and gives risks, and we should all have that. Okay, so we should be, what I'm saying to you brothers, we should be trying to unite, not trying to disunite. We shouldn't be trying to do that, because we are just becoming like clowns on the internet when we do that. So forgive me if I've said anything wrong, and if I've got anything that I've said that's incorrect in any way, you can publicly give me constructive criticism. Privately, I don't mind. You can find my details on LinkedIn. I'm more active on LinkedIn, so you can contact me on LinkedIn, and you can tell me, brother, what you've said is incorrect and blah blah blah. I don't mind at all, and quote me any hadith, but from what I've read, from the hadith I've read, it's not allowed for us to create this uprising against a leader unless he calls you to abandon prayers, abandon fasting, abandon zakat, abandon hajj, for example. If he stops you against that, then you can basically create an uprising. But there's nothing wrong with giving constructive criticism. If there's a way that you can give your point respectively to a leader or someone in position of authority, maybe you have a relative or you have a friend that works for like a government office, or he's connected to one of the ministers or something, you can advise him. Okay, your father or your uncle is the minister for education or minister this. You can give him advice in that particular field, and you could tell him, look, this is what Allah said, this is the way, this particular, if you're in this position, this is the way you implement Islam in your position, and you leave it. Yeah, Allah guides those who seek guidance. He doesn't guide who you love, obviously. So there's no compulsion, so you just give it to them, and that's it. And then Allah's going to judge them on the day of judgment. Allah's the one who's going to judge them on how they've implemented Islam in their occupation. Yeah, so that's all we do. That's all we do, and there's nothing else. And that's it. And barakallah fikum. Finally, last point is barakallah fikum. Keep good work, mashallah. And please, I feel as a Muslim, as a servant of Allah, I feel bad when I see this happening. This is worse than like when I see an enemy of Allah creating a video. For me, it's worse when I see brothers arguing, or brothers picking petty fights between them, or pointing faults in each other. And we should be doing the complete opposite. We should be uniting and showing the world that we as Muslims, we are one family. We all originated from Adam, and we are one family. We should not be attacking each other in any way, which is verbally, physically, or anything like that. We should be praising each other and building on top of, like, I might have certain knowledge, and someone else might say, well, actually, brother, you might look at this hadith, which gives you a little bit of knowledge in this particular aspect. That's fine. Or correcting someone, saying, look, brother, with all due respect, maybe the way that you said it could be kind of misunderstood, but I just want to clarify it. That's fine, it's okay. Sometimes I might say something and it could be misquoted, and people might get this misunderstanding. Oh, actually, that's haram, or what you said. I didn't say anything haram. Maybe the way I've said it is misunderstood as it's incorrect, or there's something wrong with the aqidah. That's fine. If I've said something that might have been misconstrued in a certain way, you can correct it. You say, brother, did you mean this, or did you mean it in that way, or maybe you should have gave a better example, because what the example you gave can be misunderstood as XYZ, basically. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But to make a conclusion on someone, that's completely wrong. Anyway, I'm sorry if I went on too long. Thank you very much anyway, and Jazakallah kull khair, and just keep up the good work. And forgive me if I've said anything wrong, and if I've said anything wrong and you want to give me some constructive criticism, by all means do so. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I feel very happy when someone corrects me or teaches me something, because I value education, I value knowledge more than anything, more than money, more than anything at all. This is the most valuable thing that in this world is knowledge. And yeah, so that's it. Okay, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.